We're going to get started here in just a few minutes. All right, so I'm going to get started here. I don't know if there's anybody here just yet. I don't have a clear view of all the viewers. All right, so this video here got brought on by a question on Facebook about getting traffic to your website, and I kind of turned this into more of a getting value out of your website series, maybe, if I have more to talk about when I'm done here. But I think getting traffic to your website revolves around getting value out of your website, because that's what you're trying to get when you're getting traffic. So I'm going to talk about what I'm going to talk about really quick. Flip to the slides here. So really, I'm going to talk about getting an understanding of how to look at traffic and value out of your website, whether your website is just a online storefront for something else, or it's an actual product itself. It's a web application or something. And I get, throughout my time on the web doing freelance or working for companies, one of the biggest questions I've heard from clients is, well, how do I get traffic, and where do I get my leads, and things like that. And so we're going to talk about that kind of stuff, and we're also going to use my website as an example of things that are good, things that are bad, and things that I could do to get more value out of my own website. So the first thing I'm going to do is give a little brief, kind of not necessarily a history, but just an idea of where my experience comes from on this matter. I didn't go to business school. I went to school for digital media, but not necessarily marketing, and not necessarily even specifically web. So most of my experience comes from just being involved in the internet since I was young. Started out in the 90s as a teenager. Look at that laptop, it's pretty awesome. Back in the days of AOL and dial-up, when web pages were pretty much, I don't know, there were some good web pages out there. You could get some information, but nobody really knew what we were doing yet, and what the goal of the internet was, what it was going to become. But I've been messing with it since then, and kind of in love with it since then. Move on to the days of Flash, where the website got a little more interesting, maybe a little annoying. But the whole goal of the web at this point, not necessarily the whole goal, but like a big deal, was making the coolest thing out there, pushing the technology, having the rollovers on buttons and stuff. Some of you younger people out there might even not even think about the fact that that wasn't even a thing for a while. You couldn't do that kind of stuff, but Flash introduced a way to do that, a way to make a more interesting interface, a more interesting experience. But we all know that Flash is pretty much dead, and that need to make crazy animations and things like that on a website is dead along with it, because that's not what we use the web for really anymore. We use it for getting information, getting something we want, and moving on. So waiting for some crazy intro on a website to finish is an annoyance. And if people still did that these days, people would skip it and never see what they were supposed to see. Then we move into the days of MySpace. And I'm throwing pictures of myself in here throughout the years for fun. That last one actually was really great. That hair was real. MySpace came in, kind of changed things. It was kind of the start of the social media world that we know today. MySpace was not necessarily used as a marketing tool like we use Facebook and Twitter and things like that, but it was the beginning of that. So, I got to experience that and be involved in that. I learned all the rules of social media before the rest of the world got on there. But anyway, so MySpace died, enter in Facebook and all that stuff. And then now more of where we are today, software. Like the internet is not just for information, is not just social networking. We have actual software online. Some of the younger folks out there also probably don't even realize that there was a time that that wasn't a thing. But I mean, the days of downloading software on your computer as the only, most software is, or a lot of software is cloud-based, and all built with web technology. So why are we doing this? Again, I've seen the way the web changed throughout the last couple of decades, and a lot of people still don't have a clear understanding of how to utilize the web, how to utilize your website and get something out of it. There's so much you can get out of a website. And a website can actually do you harm if not done right also. But the amount of data and analytics and things you can learn from your website is astounding right now. Creepy too. The kind of tracking you can do is pretty amazing if you're the one tracking, pretty creepy if you're the one being tracked. So that leads me to the question, where's my traffic? How do I get more traffic to my site? And traffic is great, but it's only one piece of the puzzle. You could have all the traffic in the world, but if that traffic isn't doing anything or amounting to anything, then it doesn't matter. You could have 1 million views a day, but if you've gained nothing from it, then what's the use? So don't confuse traffic and conversions. What you want is a conversion. You want that traffic. You want those people to get to your site, and you want to convert them. And simply put, a conversion, if you're not familiar with that, basically getting a visitor to do something you want them to do. So when they get to your site, what are you going to get out of them? What are you going to give them to entice them to give you something? How do you direct them where you want to go? How do you get them to navigate your site and get somewhere? A lot of times we depending on what we're doing, we want people to sign up for something. If that's what you're looking for, or you want them to buy something, or maybe you just want to capture their information and utilize that to, maybe they're not going to buy something now, but you capture that information so that you can now, make them kind of a lead, put them in your database, and continue to target them and monitor them. So you got to think, where is your value? And that really depends on what your site is doing, what the purpose of your site is. Like I said, if it's an application, if it's something you sign up for, a service, or if it's simply just an advertisement to get you to go other places or buy something, whatever. You kind of have to look at your site and make that conclusion for yourself. And so that's what we're going to do with my site, is we're going to take a look at my site, look at where the value is, where I bring in money, and how I could do it differently. So let's take a quick peek at what it is that brings value to my site, or how my site or business generates money. You can see by the graph here that it is pretty obvious what I generate revenue from mostly. And this is kind of rough, but I just used it. I used the last month of data to kind of give an idea. And this varies a little bit, but pretty much over the last couple of years, private training is where the majority of money comes in. There was a time, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, where YouTube ad revenue might have been equal or greater than the private training, because it was a good source of revenue. Website ad revenue, I think it was like 0.0001%. I think I might make a penny on that each month, if even. But then again, I have like 2 ads on my site, and I've never really cared much about that, but they're there. Donations, that varies a lot. That that has to do with how many people watch my videos, and whether they were in a position to donate, whether they thought they got enough value out of my videos and prompted them to donate, which is awesome. Then Udemy. I am on Udemy, but I have not actually done anything on there in quite a few years. So every once in a while, I'll get an email that says that I earned a little bit of money. By a little bit, I mean maybe like $10 or something. So that's a look at where I generate money. So now we can look at my website. I'm going to pull that up here in just a second. So I've never put a lot of stock into my website itself. I wanted to make it easy to use, easy on the eyes, simple enough. But I have never used it as a main source of revenue. I've used it as a way to, one, because I should have one. I teach web development, so not having a website would be a little odd. But mostly it's to get people to my videos. But I've never really, up until starting to do these live videos, I haven't really used it to capture any data, really do much other than just have a home, on the web, other than YouTube and Facebook. And, also private training. This is how I get people to, sign up for private training. So it does work for that. It's great for that. But I don't get a ton of new business as much as I have repeat business, which is awesome too. And mostly because I don't really advertise, other than seeing a link maybe at the bottom of my video. If you actually click on view more in the description, you might see a link to private. sessions, but I don't really advertise it very much. So most of it is I'll get somebody and they'll stick with me for several years and keep coming back. So I want to talk about the conversion deal here because I've never really used anything to get a conversion. This mailing list is here. I'm terrible about sending mailings out. I started it, but I most of the time I use YouTube to get information out. I want to make a video, I put it on YouTube, and anybody who subscribes on YouTube's already going to know that anyway. So I don't use that very much, but I should. So that's one. It's like a call to action. It's down here though. Why? Doesn't help much. So honestly, I should take it out until I'm ready to use it, and that's something to think about too. Now, as far as conversions go, it wasn't until, like I said, these live events that I implemented something that could create a conversion, which would be the submit a question for live events. So I have this tied into a service called HubSpot, which it's a pretty neat service, and they have a CRM that's free, and you can capture data, things like that. I think you're kind of limited on how much you can get with the free account, but you're still capturing some stuff, and it's good for organization. So this would be considered a conversion. I go in here and I fill this thing out. Actually, I'll use a real address. And sample question. So I submit this. And I go over to HubSpot now. And if I refresh, this was a test I did earlier, but if I refresh, I now have a conversion. Somebody filled out that form. I have an email address and a name, and the question which I wanted for the Q&As. So it's a very simple conversion, and I don't target people. I don't really, I don't cold call people or things like that. So I really just wanted to get a name and an email address in case I needed to get back with the person, learn more about the question they wanted to ask or something like that. But now, if I start creating more forms or things like that, I can get more information and I can see a history of the things that person, that user has done. And this is a way to start getting value. I'm seeing what they're doing. And I think on the paid version of this, you will actually see all the where they're going on the site. They clicked on private training, twice today, and that gives me an idea that this person is interested in private training. So the person who actually brought this whole topic up over on Facebook has a dating website, and this is good stuff for that. Like, if you're trying to get people traffic to your site and you're trying to figure out, maybe you are getting traffic, but why aren't you getting people signing up? Track them, find out, get some information about them so you can maybe send them an email, some marketing, here's why you should use our service. And of course, they can always opt out, but it's a way to, get some interest and keep them thinking about you. But you can also see, where they went, and maybe they kept going to a certain section like the sign up page, but then they didn't do it. And so you can start asking yourself, why are they not doing it, and start taking a look at that sign up page. And you can see that maybe a bunch of people are doing that, and you're wondering, what is it about that part of my site that is deterring people? Just as an example. Another tool for seeing these kind of things would be Google Analytics. This is a great tool. It's free, and you can do a ton, so much that by the time you think you learned everything, they've already introduced brand new tools, and you it's just never ending. The amount of information you can get from here is awesome. I mean, this real time thing is pretty cool. So, I mean, you can see where people are at, when they're watching. So I can tell that, here's me. I'm pretty sure that's me right now. So you can get kind of an idea of where your traffic's coming from, who to cater to. If you, so I'm going to bring the dating site up again as an example. If you're catering to, say, America and English speaking people right now, but then you see that most of your traffic's actually coming from another country, might be an indication that you could maybe redirect your focuses to that country, and cater to them, as an example. Take a look at what pages people are hitting. I believe this was like a month overview. So, majority of people that came to my site hit the homepage. 8 people went to live events. 4 people went to scheduling, and those are probably my already existing clients. Which I will note, since I added this form over here, I also made it so that I'm getting actual data from the people that are signing up for my courses, which uses a different service, but I tie it into HubSpot so I can keep track of all the people that are signing up and things like that. So, but you can take a look, you can see where people are going. And again, like my, 75 page views in the last month, that's pretty low. And that's because I don't use this site as much of a tool other than to get people to sign up for private training. And a lot of times that's just me saying, hey, run over there if you want, somebody getting a hold of me on YouTube or Facebook or something and say, I'd like to get private sessions. And I say, well, head over to my website. So with that said, how could I do better with this? I have very little calls to action here on the homepage. The 2 biggest things you probably see would be the name of the site, the donate button, and the tutorials and series. The Facebook feed, of course, is there, but I don't really care for that that plugin. It's jumbled up and not easy to read. So it's not where your eyes go. And if your eyes do go over there, you go, I don't like this. Those are things to think about too. What are people seeing the moment they hit your site? And say maybe they're on, I think we're still catering to laptops that had kind of like the 720 HD kind of size range. But most newer laptops and computers are using at least full HD. But you still want to kind of think, somebody on a laptop, an older laptop comes here and they're saying maybe about this. How do I capture them right here? Think about your own behavior when you go to websites. You're looking for things, services, information, etc. And something comes up in the search result on Google and you click on it and they get to you get to the site and what do? Do you see what you need right away? And if you don't see what you need right away, do you leave? I'm pretty sure most of us do that. We have no time to waste tracking down information. We want people to lead us to it right away. So since my main source of revenue right now is private training, it's a little odd that I don't have anything on here that sends you to private training other than the link up here in the main nav. So if I was getting people here that maybe they don't know why they're coming here, maybe they're looking for some web help, but they don't even realize that private training is a thing you can do. You can hire somebody by the hour to sit with you, share screens, and walk you through something. They have no idea they can do that, and I've lost them. And that's because I have no call to action. I have no way to get their attention to do what I want. And a lot of that I think is because originally my revenue was mostly based on YouTube. So I always focused on making sure people could see how to get to YouTube or make a donation. But since YouTube has changed quite a bit, if you saw my rant yesterday, and you can see it on the Facebook feed right now, I need to start thinking about that. And I want to focus on the private training. Always going to do YouTube videos, whether I'm making a ton of money or not. But I also need to focus on how I get revenue to offset what I've lost on YouTube. And private training is one of those things. So think about that with your own site. What do people see when they get there? Are you directing them where you want them to go? Think about your own behavior when you go to websites. And you got to really put all this, you got to take this into consideration. And if you're offering more than one service or more than one option, how do you get all those options that are very important, that are going to get you value in front of the user right away? So those are things to think about. Another thing I would say, if you're a service, if you want people to sign up, you want them to give you information, make sure your site's secure. Not just because, I mean, obviously you should. Data breaches and things like that are very scary and could ruin a bunch of people along with yourself if you have to deal with one of those. So make sure everything is secure, but also just as a so that people feel secure. If I go to a website and they're asking me for anything, I don't care if they just want to know what my dog's name is. If the website isn't secure, I'm not doing it. If I don't see that up there, if there's not an SSL certificate, I'm not giving anybody any of my information. So especially if you're a service where you're grabbing their personal information, even if it's just name and email, make sure that's there. Some people aren't maybe aware enough to know that that's bad, but more and more people are. And you should just do it anyway. So the other thing, even if I look at this site, it is totally geared towards getting people to YouTube. Even up here in the navigation, the only real options you can get are going to YouTube or going to GitHub to look at some of the projects. That doesn't generate me any money. Maybe generates attention. People like the project, they might follow me on YouTube and keep better track of what's going on. So it's still important, but it's not generating me any money. One thing I could do here is I offer a lot of things when it comes to private training. Training is not even really the appropriate word anymore. It's more turned into private consulting. I've done a lot of helping people do some of the things I'm talking about now, how to figure out, maybe they have an idea and they want to hire a web developer. And I'm looking at the chat. Thank you. And I brought the chat in this time because I feel like it's funny when I do these and nobody can see what I chuckle at. But so, like I said, I do a lot of consulting now. I do training, and most of the time that's like college students, and usually a lot of people from like overseas, from me anyway. But when it comes to anybody who's not really a college student, most of what I'm doing is helping them say they've got an idea, they want to hire a web developer. I don't want to be hired. I don't do that anymore. I take on projects that I want to do for myself mostly. But I am more than willing to help somebody navigate that process of hiring a web developer, because it can be a nightmare for somebody who doesn't know anything about this field. There's a lot of money involved, and there's a lot of bases that need to be covered when you're getting into a development project. So I do a lot of that. None of that is mentioned here. So I've left this kind of in the state that I left it when I first started the site. The style changed a little bit, but most of the data is still the same. The information's still the same. So I get those people. I don't know how I get those people that want consulting, because I'm not advertising that I do that. But the fact that I'm getting them and I'm not advertising means that I should, because I can get more if I actually promote that. So why would I have, all these options up here for places that don't necessarily generate revenue, still valuable in content sense and keeping people wanting to come back? But if I'm trying to generate revenue, I should have at the very least a drop down here with different options. Yeah, looking at the chat again. Yeah, I know it's not in there. I'm using the same setup that I use when I've got the terminal and stuff open. And I ran out of time to mess with it before I started. So I need to set up another template for the live stream so that I just have the browser or have something full screen. So I apologize for that. But so why don't I break down my services? So I have maybe changed this to a services drop down, and under there I have private training, where I can get more involved or more detailed on what private training is. Cater those college students that I work with. But then have another option on there for consulting, and have a whole page, just for that, where I can talk about the things I just mentioned. Are you trying to start a web development project? Do you have an idea and you need to know how to get started? Things like that. And another thing I've gotten into recently is actually documenting people's software. People go through that process. They hire a developer, and a lot of times they'll get really, really cheap help. And they get some code. Sometimes it's bad. Sometimes, they don't finish whatever the situation is. But a lot of times the code isn't documented. So the next time, they want to go in and they want to hire another developer, they've got no idea. That developer has no idea what they're looking at. And most of us who look at code that isn't commented, isn't documented, a lot of times we say, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm starting over. And that is the thing that clients do not want to hear. And I don't want to do it either, but I see no other option. Otherwise, I'm going to spend weeks and months just figuring out what this other person did. So I've actually gotten some clients that have hired me to go through and learn what their previous developers did and document it, not only by commenting things like that in the code, but actually writing documentation. That's where the Sphinx, the Python documentation generator that I brought up in other videos comes in. I've used that a bit to document other people's code, or for other people that have had developers that have bailed on them, so that they have a nice package when they go out and to hire other developers. So again, there's another service I can put in there. So, I'm bringing all these things up because, I can talk about my own stuff for days, and I know why certain things don't work, or how I could get more traffic and I'm not doing it. And that's things you need to think about. If you're upset that you're not getting traffic, you're not getting business and things like that, you have to take a step back and look at these things. And, because just getting your site to come up in a Google search, which is not easy anyway, but that's not the only way to get traffic and keep it. So take a look at what you're offering. Are you presenting it in a way that tells the user this is what you want. This is why you want it. Here's how to get it. I know one thing. I do a lot of. I help a lot of people find services, things like that HubSpot that I showed earlier, services to help their business or something like that, and and myself too, looking at like project management software and things like that for any projects I'm working on. The first thing I do when I look for a service like that is I look for pricing. If I can't find pricing, I usually leave right away. I want to know how much the thing costs. Is it free? Or is there a free option? And if there is a free option, what does that get me? And if that doesn't get me what I want, what's the next option? And is it affordable? I want to see that right away. I already know that I need a project management tool. Of course, I want to know what features they have. But first and foremost, before I even dive in to spending any time with your product, even if it's just reading a write-up about it, I want to know how much it costs. So, because either I'm doing it for myself or I'm doing it for another person who I'm consulting. And I need to know this information. I need to know it quick because I'm going to go through about 30 of them in this process of doing research. So if I can't find the price, unless you are showing me features right away that are amazing and nobody else has them, then you've lost me. And so, that's something to think about. The example of the dating site. Is that there? Is there a way to clearly find out what does this cost me, if anything? What is expected of me to use your service? Another thing I can think of is signing up. Is signing up a horrendous experience? One thing I could definitely recommend for services is using things like Google or Facebook to handle your login. Because I don't want to fill out that same form I filled out a million times. I want to just log in. I want to have an account now. I do not, and I definitely, even if I do have to fill out a form, it better not be more than just my name, my email, and a password or something. Because I don't know if this isn't, you don't see this very often anymore. A lot of it because of having the options of using Google and Facebook and stuff to sign in. But I know a lot of times in the past we had these giant forms you had to fill out all this information. And I get that you as a business, you want all this valuable information about a potential client or somebody signing up to your service. Get it later. Do not force them to have to give you a whole bunch of stuff and spend more than a couple of clicks to become registered to your site or your service. You can get that information later. The key is getting them in there. So that's another thing to think about. And really, I'm just totally going off the top of my head at this point on things that I can think of. And my goal with this talk here is to spit some of these things out. And if we think we can expand on this later, I'll do more videos that are more fine-tuned on one specific idea involving value from your site. But otherwise, I'm just throwing things out here. One sec while I get a drink. I may have actually run out of ideas. I think I've definitely targeted my own site quite a bit. Definitely want to reiterate the call to action on the homepage. Don't waste space. Don't clutter it. Do it in a presentable way, but don't waste space. Think about where people's eyes are going to go. What are they going to see first? Good chance that someone's going to see my logo, read the name, see the donate, and then see these down here. Like I said earlier, maybe they'll go over to here, but this looks like a chaotic mess, and their eyes are they're going to dart back over to something else. These things are quite important, especially when it's your homepage. But you also kind of have to think of, especially with people finding you through like Google or something, it's not always your homepage that they're going to land on. Maybe they are actually searching for private training on something, and this is where they land. So you also think about that. What is above that fold here that they're first going to see? One thing that could help me right now on here is a book now button. I have a whole bunch of information. You may not be interested in reading about it, and you may just really want to know, how does this work? And by putting a button here that says book now and it shoots you down to here, I think that's a great idea, because that tells you right now, this is something you can do. There's not a whole lot of steps. Like, you can do it right now. Because people may not get past this right here. They read some stuff and it's like, okay, I kind of get it. I'm actually not even using GoToMeeting anymore. I'm using different software. But why not just send them where I want right now? So, boom, call to action, first thing they see if they land here. Same with the live events. This was thrown together very quickly. But, again, call to action. Check out our live events, shoot you down here. And even better yet, because I'm not doing this automatically, I'm actually putting these in manually right now, because I sometimes don't like messing with Google's API. It's annoying. But, if I know that I'm not going to be updating these very well, if I get behind because I'm doing it manually, then it would be better if I just shoot them over to YouTube so they can see the live events if that's what they're looking for. And that's the thing to think about too. What are you willing to put into this? This is a section that needs to be updated. And if I'm not willing to continue to update this, do I need it? Because it will do more harm than good if I'm not updating it. For one, like, this is an old event. I need to take it down. This could show that I'm not maintaining things and maybe I'm not doing this anymore. Things like that are important. Look at the value of every little area of your site. Are you wasting space? Is this a waste of time? Is this doing harm? Are you losing people for things like that? Outdated information. Now that does give me another idea. And I just got out of a meeting actually before this session, working with a real estate agent, and they want a website, and they're provided one with their broker, their main company, and then, it's basically just like a profile, and they can add maybe a couple of pages and tweak them a little bit, but it's not necessarily a website. It's just their own little section of the overall website of the broker. And as much as I would love them to have their own website that promotes them without giving the users access to all the other agents with that broker, I want to know, do they have the time to manage that website? Is it worth it for them to actually build a website? What are you going to put on it? What's the purpose? If it's just a website that has your name and contact information on it and nothing else, is that doing you any good? You might as well send them to the main site that has a place for you to search for properties and things like that on it, tools like that, as long as you're keeping that up to date a little bit and you make it look somewhat nice and personal. However, if you are able to spend the time, then the website, your own website, is a great idea. Something that I used to have on mine, and this is why I brought this up, is it remind me of that, it's a blog. I've done this a couple of times. I've added a blog, I update it for like a couple of months, and then I get busy and I don't maintain it, and then a whole year goes by and maybe I'll do another blog post or something, and then I end up just taking it down because it's not doing me any good. It's probably doing me harm. It makes me look like I'm not doing anything anymore. I'm not maintaining this. So I removed it because I knew I didn't have the time to maintain it. But a blog is actually a very, very good way to make money or get value out of your site, because you can tie that into social media. If you can do a regular blog post, whether it's every day, every week, every month, or every 2 months, as long as it's consistent and it's regular and it's decent information. For instance, with real estate, it doesn't have to be necessarily about your particular service or anything like that, but there's a lot of information about real estate that people who need a realtor don't know. That's why you need a real estate agent. So post things about the business, about foreclosures, about why you shouldn't sell by owner, the pros and cons of selling by owner, things like that. And just do a nice little write-up. Put a nice photo at the top, something catchy, even if it's got to be clip art, just as long as it's not bad. And do a blog post once a month. And every time you do one of those, tie it into social media. Send a link out to your Facebook page, to your Twitter page, or feed, whatever. And allow people to take that, and if they like it, they will look. If they like it a lot, they will share. And all of a sudden, you're bringing people to your site. Because you can't just go out on Facebook and say, go to my site every week or every day. No one's going to care, and they're probably going to not follow you anymore and hide you. And then you've done harm again. But if you're doing something regular like a blog post, every business is doing this. Every big business is doing this. But you're keeping things relevant in people's social media, keeping your name popping up, and giving the ability to share things. So maybe that article isn't, it's about something, like say, for instance, foreclosures, and that's interesting to you. You're going to go to that. You're going to see who put it there. You're going to see other blog posts, hopefully. And most importantly, on your blog post, what's the call to action? How do you convert these people once you've got them there? Maybe there's a form. Would you like to know more information? Would you like to get something? Fill this form out. What can you give them of value so that you can get something from them, even if it's just their contact information, so you can maybe bug them every once in a while and say, you ready to sell? Or something like that. So, that is another great tool. However, again, like I said, if you can't maintain it, then it becomes a negative. It makes it look like your site has died, your business is not around anymore, or whatever. Think of your website as kind of like a storefront. Even if you don't actually have a real physical business, it's not much different. If you've got a building, you sell shoes. Not sure where that idea came from, but you sell shoes. Say you got a shoe store, and your window breaks, and you don't fix it. You put some tape over it. You put up some cardboard. People may not want to go to your shoe store anymore. It doesn't look like looks like bad things might happen there. Looks like maybe they're not even open anymore. Why would I want to go in there? Same kind of thing with a website. If it looks like it's kind of abandoned and not being taken care of, then people are going to leave, and they're not going to share it. Things like that. Same with, maybe a better example would be you put up on your window in your storefront, October sale, but now it's January and you still haven't taken that sign down. Again, people are going to walk by and go, are these people even open? Are they even running their business? And if they are open, they're not even paying attention to these kind of things. Why would I want to do business with them? Why would I want to give them my information? Things like that. So keep that in mind. And on top of that, maybe think about design too. Design's very important. You can have a very minimalist design and be fine as long as it's done well and it looks kind of modern. I've gone that route here because I don't have time to design a site that's, super involved. Every time I've attempted, I've come up with 8 or 9 different versions. I remember in 2011, I started a new one, and Then I think it was in like maybe January, we'll say. And then by February, I had another folder called 2011X for the new idea I had that I wasn't going to finish. And then I had 2011X2 because I had an idea that was similar to that and I didn't finish it. Uh, but, so I decided I'm never going to do that. I don't have the time to do it. I don't have that time to get that involved. I need to put something up that's clean and straightforward. And so that's why I've settled on this. And that's fine. But it should be clean if you're going to do it that way. Clean and not cluttered. Have a clear path. Again, I've mentioned this already. Yeah, when you come here, where your eyes are going to go first. There's a clear path. If I had a ton of contents just crammed everywhere, nobody knows what to do with their eyes. And maybe you don't lose them at that point, but you haven't put them where you want them to go. They're going to just kind of fixate on something that they can make sense of and go there. And if that's not what they want, they're going to leave. So keep that in mind. Another thing is if you're going to try and do something that's more than just a minimalist design, hire a designer. Unless you are a very good designer yourself, hire a designer, pay that money because it's very important. This is your storefront. If your logo looks like it was made in the 90s or it was made by your nephew who's good with computers and likes art, but doesn't actually understand art, then, think of that as, you're walking down the street and you've got two options of a shoe store. One's got this modern look and feel, looks like they had a whole marketing team behind them. And this other one looks like, again, maybe it's open. I don't know. I can kind of make out what the logo says or what the name of the business is, things like that. It's very important, and it's worth hiring somebody. Maybe you don't have a whole lot of money, but at least finding somebody that can do something, come up with a design that is clean and modern and makes sense, because this is your image, and that's important. We're heading towards the end of an hour here, so I might leave that at this. And then if I'll pay attention to Facebook and comments and stuff. If I can expand on this, because like I said, it's kind of just throwing spaghetti on anything I could think of to talk about. But I would love to dive more in if we wanted to dive into like analytics and how to read them, or services like HubSpot on how to capture data and keep track of your users, not only keep track of them, but keep their data, their contact information, things like noting their account, making tasks to follow up, things like that to keep your business going. Because that's another thing. A lot of times we make a website, we have this idea, and we're hoping that people just come here, they sign up, and then they use it, and I don't really have to do anything after that. It's just money, just going to make money, and that's it. Doesn't really work that way. You have to work, even if it's just a website. There's very few examples I can think of off the top of my head of a website where you don't have to do anything to keep it generating money or doing what you need it to do. So keeping track of those contacts, those clients, those leads, and following up with them is very important. And when you do follow up with them, send them somewhere. Get them to reconvert. I don't know if that's actually a real thing, but maybe you did convert somebody a year ago, but they're not doing anything. They're not very active. You don't see anything from them, but you want to get them involved again. So send something out that's going to send them to a page that has a call to action to get something out of them. Give them something and get something back. Yeah, I'm kind of out of topics off the top of my head and running out of time. I have to record 2 more hours of videos for a client after this, so I need to save my voice. But I'm going to wrap this up. And if anybody has any ideas based on all the stuff I've thrown out, I would love to dive into this deeper. I will make a note about some of the things I talked about on Facebook yesterday. One of my videos did actually finally get monetized, so it seems like they're fixing some of that. However, I am starting to explore other options. I am going to keep doing this. I'm not going to stop doing this. I'm enjoying this, and I want to get better at it and provide more or just better content. But I'm looking into other ways we can. Thinking about leaving YouTube forced me to start looking at everything that is out there, because I've been with YouTube for almost 7 years, and I've never needed to really look anywhere else. So looking at things like Patreon again and things like that, offering some extra content or whatever to supplement the loss of revenue with YouTube. But yeah, that's all I got. I'm going to wrap this up. I thank everybody for joining today. And I'm going to coming up with a new idea for an event next weekend, and hopefully I will have that finalized either tonight or tomorrow. So we'll see you guys later.